You feel the roughness of the dry straw beneath your hands as the sun barely awakens on the sandy horizon. The sharp scent of resin and spices lingers heavily in the morning air, mixing with the dust that stubbornly settles into the folds of your coarse cloth robes. Your weary body moves through routines that hardly shift, cleaning the bones, carefully removing the organs, applying sticky oil that slowly trickles between your fingers. You know each gesture is sacred. More than hard labor, they form an unchanging ritual meant to protect the soul of the holy animals. The distant sound of the temple hums quietly, the constant murmur of flowing water and the flutter of bats' wings accompany your monotonous toil. Today, the most dreaded task draws near, embalming the animal chosen for the gods, whose perfect body must endure the passage of time. Your hands fill with natron, the dry powder that burns the skin, and you feel the invisible weight of responsibility to preserve something that, if done wrong, could bring the priest's wrath and eternal shame. Between the shimmering dry heat and the repetitive, tiresome touch, you become part of a tradition dragging slowly between the sacred and the mortal. The temple surrounds you in its faded ochres and dusty golds, stone walls etched with stories only whispered in silent reverence. The air hangs thick with stillness, broken only by the gentle trickle of water from a nearby basin and the faint rustle of bats navigating unseen corners. The earth beneath your feet is scorched and cracked, mirroring the relentless sun that climbs reluctantly into the sky overhead. Your fingers trace the brittle edges of the animal's bones, each fragment telling tales of life now suspended in time. The natron's fine granules bite at your skin, a sting that reminds you of the delicate balance between preservation and decay. You pause, inhaling deeply, the mingled aromas of myrrh, cedar, and the salt drying on your hands. In this slow dance of repetition and concentration, even the monotonous heat rivals the frustration of waiting for the desert wind to carry the cool evening. A trial not unlike the impatience one might feel watching a slow connection load forgotten images in the cities far beyond. For a brief moment, your focus shifts to the soothing rhythms, the soft whisper of bat wings brushing against ancient stone, the quiet stream flowing endlessly, as if the temple itself breathes with patience. That fragile beauty offers a fleeting reprieve before you must turn again to the sacred task, each motion deliberate and unhurried. Yet just as certainty seems to settle on your shoulders, an unexpected silence deepens in the temple. The familiar murmur of water hushes to nothing, and even the bat's restless wings seem to still. You glance swiftly toward the darkened entryway where the chosen animal waits, and a sudden chill, out of place in the scorching morning, creeps along your spine. Something about this sacred duty feels heavier now, as if more than tradition hinges on the day's work. Before Morpheus takes you fully into rest, you paused, compelled to check if you were still subscribed. Sometimes the button vanished, and you would not want to lose the next stories that beckon sleep. You took the moment to leave a like, soft as a pillow's sigh, and you shared in comments. Where were you listening from? And what time held your world? Your presence kept this quiet corner alive. Thanks for being part of it. You sense the absence before you even shift your gaze. The gentle murmur of water has vanished, leaving the temple wrapped in an unsettling, heavy quiet. Your fingers linger on the coarse straw, still dusted with fine natron, the grains sharp enough to prick the skin, and you swallow the dryness in your throat as a slow, strange chill slips along your spine, refusing to yield to the rising day's heat. The sun climbs ever so slowly, pale and reluctant, touching only the edges of crumbling stone, as if hesitant to enter the temple's somber embrace. Your breath catches, drawn tight in the still air, mingling with the faint but potent sense of myrrh and cedar resin. They weave around you, anchoring you to this ancient place of rituals and weighty duty. The cool powder on your hands contrasts harshly with the relentless warmth pressing down on you. You steady your heartbeat, telling yourself the work must continue. The animal chosen, perfect and silent, waits for preservation beneath the fading ochres and golds, lost in the dry dust of the stone floor. Slowly, your hands rise again to the clay basin, fingers dipping into the small pool of water that should have whispered a steady psalm, but remains mute like the rest of the temple. The surface moves only in the softest ripple, trembling faintly, as if resisting some invisible force. You draw your fingers out, droplets clinging and shimmering, like tiny glaciers melting under the sun's soft gaze. The weight of your responsibility hums louder in the silence, a quiet but pressing presence that tightens around your ribs. You turn toward the chamber where the animal rests. Its smooth form, untouched by time, seems almost fragile beneath the dim light filtering through the narrow windows. The dry scent of dust mingles with the faintest trace of decay, a reminder of what lies beneath the ritual's careful varnish. Your footsteps fall soft and measured on the cracked, sun-bleached stones, echoing in the vast stillness. Each step feels heavier than the last, burdened with the unspoken fear that today's ritual may deviate from the long path walked by your ancestors. Your hands find the animal's body once more. The surface is cool and taut, yet beneath that, the quiet whisper of time pulses like a slow heartbeat. You scrape gently with practiced care, removing the last fragments of flesh, the small, sharp remnants that refuse to yield. The natron dust settles again between your fingers, coarse and grinding, biting the skin but coaxing preservation. Sweat pools at your temples, not from heat alone, but from the tension thrumming unseen beneath motion. The temple seems to breathe with a changing rhythm now. Or perhaps it is just your mind stretching thin, twisting the shadows cast by the waking sun. A faint rustle breaks the silence, a single wing beat, hesitant and distant, not the usual flutter of bats, but something slower, heavier. Your eyes flicker toward the deep shadows of the hollow columns that line the hall. Nothing moves, yet the feeling remains, crawling luckless through the air, like an unseen thread pulling taut. You step back, allowing your pulse to slow, eyes fixed on the carved hieroglyphs worn by time. Their silent stories form an unbroken chain, words woven into stone that speak of death and reverence, hope and sacrifice. The slow dance of dust motes drifts along the stale beams of light, tracing invisible paths. The world outside still waits, impatient, the desert wind barely whispering against the temple's base. But here, time stretches thin, drawing your focus into the smallest details. A faint warmth returns, brushing against your skin like a forgotten memory. The soft exhale of a breath you don't quite feel you own. You kneel again, the rough stones pressing firmly beneath your knees, coarse and cold despite the heat surrounding them. Your fingers move carefully, tracing the contours of the limbs, the delicate brittle edges where flesh once clung. Layer by layer the ritual advances, the oil shimmering and thick, sliding slowly over exposed surfaces, catching the slim light and staining the air with its pungent sweetness. You pause for a moment, inhaling deeply the mingled smells, the burnt resin, hint of herbs dried somewhere deep in the temple archives, and that ever-present, unyielding dust. Around you, the echoes of 1,000 repeated motions settle like a ghostly chorus, a slow, measured chant without sound. The cool dryness clings to your throat, as obligatory and tangible as the natron itself. Your gaze drifts to the darkened entrance beyond the chamber. Shadows have thickened there, drawing a curtain between you and the sunlit courtyard you passed this morning. Something lingers in that darkness, an unspoken hesitation, or perhaps an unseen watcher. The silence has folded around it like a thick cloak, swallowing the faint calls of the waking world. A bead of sweat slits down your temple, and you reach up with a trembling hand to brush it away. But the unease clings like stubborn shadow. You rise slowly, the weight of motions unchanging, but now heavy with new meaning. Every step is careful and deliberate as you retrace your path toward the threshold. The stone underfoot is cracked and rough, the dry heat relentless, but your focus sharpens into a slow, sure rhythm. As your hand reaches out to the worn wooden door, rough splinters catch against your skin. The silence is fractured, not by sound, but by the sudden chill that flows beneath your palm, cold as ancient water, a fleeting breath from the depths of the temple itself. You hesitate, heart contracting, the pressing stillness around you as dense and slow as the desert dusk. That silence breaks then, not with noise, but with the subtle shift of shadow, as if the darkness at the entrance leans forward just a little, waiting patiently for you to cross the boundary. The wooden door rests cold beneath your palm, its rough splinters pressing a quiet warning through your skin. The stillness beyond feels not empty, but charged, as if the very shadows hold their breath, waiting. You hesitate, the heat of the desert barely touching this sliver of darkness, where light fails to reach and the temperature dives into a sudden chill that prickles your nerves. You sense it, faint and intangible, seeping through the cracks and corners like a whispered secret you are not meant to hear. Slowly, you push the door forward, the ancient hinges groaning softly, reluctant like a creature disturbed from a long slumber. The darkness swallows you as you step inside, and the air shifts, heavy and dense, carrying the scent of aged stone and something far older, something tied to the very bones you tend. The faint echoes of your steps seem to stretch unnaturally, falling into infinity as you move further from the sunlit world. Your eyes adjust, picking out vague shapes, pillars scarred by time, walls etched with symbols fading into oblivion. The silence here is thick, an almost tangible weight pressing in on all sides. You inhale slowly, the scent of cedar resin mixed with dry earth filling your lungs. The cold powder on your fingers prickles, a stark counterpoint to the relentless heat you left behind. You move deliberately, each motion slow and precise. The rough stone floor feels uneven beneath your sandals, the edges sharp against your worn soles. Your fingers trail lightly along the carved surfaces, feeling the grooves where countless hands before yours traced the ancient stories. Time seems to fold inward here, compressing decades into moments as you continue your ritual. The animal chosen for this rite lies ahead, its form resting in a shallow stone basin carved deep into the floor. The pale light from above seeps through a narrow slit in the ceiling, casting a solitary beam that dances across the smooth contours of the preserved flesh. Dust motes swirl gently in the beam, their slow movements hypnotic amidst the daunting stillness. You approach the animal, your breath shallow, heart drumming a quiet rhythm against your ribs. Your fingertips brush the surface, cool and unyielding, tracing the contours with reverence and care. The natron dust clings stubbornly to your skin, gritty and biting as always, marking your hands with the sacred residue of preservation. As you begin to work, your motions, deliberate, though unhurried, a faint tremor of unease curls in your chest. The silence around you deepens, wrapping tighter with each passing moment. The usual hum of flowing water, the soft flutter of the bat's wings overhead have vanished entirely. It feels as though the temple itself holds its breath, waiting alongside you. Your hand dips once more into the small basin of water, disturbed only by the gentle ripple you create. The liquid glimmers faintly, cold and clear, a stark contrast to the choking heat of the outside world. You draw droplets slowly across the animal's skin, smoothing oil over its surface in a slow, unbroken line. The scent of myrrh rises, pungent and warm, weaving a fragile thread of comfort through the chilly air. You pause, fingers lingering in the oily sheen as your eyes sweep the chamber. Shadows gather in quiet corners, thickening blackness where your vision fades. The flicker of movement at the periphery, the gentle rustle of fabric or a breath held too long, makes your skin prickle anew. You turn your gaze sharply, scanning the surrounding darkness, but find only stillness where motion seemed to hide. Sweat beads on your forehead, cool despite the rising heat outside. The tension coils tightly within you, a silent coil that tightens with each passing second. Your palms itch with the roughness of the natron, and your joints ache with the slow, grinding repetition of years spent in this sacred labor. Yet the atmosphere weighs heavier now, laden not just with ritual, but with something unseen, something waiting. Shifting slowly to the basin of natron, you scoop the fine powder in your hands once again, feeling its abrasive sting as grains slip between your fingers. Layer by layer, you brush it across the body, pressing patience into every motion. The scent of cedar lingers thick around you, the ancient incense clinging to the stone walls and carving itself into the very air. From somewhere deep in the temple, a low, distant sound hums, a vibration you can barely place. It slices through the silence like a thread pulled taut, threading its way through your consciousness. You stop, breath catching, palms clenching and unclenching in slow rhythm, grounding yourself in the moment. The light shifts subtly, shadows stretching longer, drawing out shapes that flicker and dissolve with your gaze. Your eyes fall again to the carved hieroglyphs, their stories etched in stone, unchanging and eternal. You run your fingers along the faint outlines, the roughness grounding you as the creeping chill curls back slightly. The heavy stillness breaks with a soft click, as if the very air answered your steady pulse. Your footsteps carry you back towards the entrance, each step measured, weighted with slow inevitability. The temple's silence unfurls behind you, the oppressive quiet giving way just enough, so the harsh desert light returns in fragile shards. The warmth seeps back, practicing patience with the reluctant sun. As you near the threshold, a sudden flicker catches your eye, a barely perceptible motion, a shadow where none should be. You freeze. breath suspended. The corner of your vision catches something shifting, elusive, in the gloom beyond the door. A presence, perhaps, or merely the temple's ancient stones playing tricks in the heat. Your fingers tighten on the doorframe, the chill returning in a whisper, soft and sure as the desert night. The silence folds again, deeper now, as if something waits patiently for your next move, coiling beneath the endless weight of stone and dust. And in that lingering moment, before you push forward, before the darkness claims you once more, you realize with a slow, sinking certainty that some part of this ritual has shifted, changed, and the temple's secret waits, patient as ever, for you to discover it. The cold press of the wooden door remains etched against your palm, a sudden coolness. Amid the desert's reluctant heat, the shadows beyond do not simply hold space, but seem to hang with patient expectation. You push the door slowly, the hinges creaking, a sound swallowed instantly by the vast, dense silence. Darkness swallows your figure whole as you cross the threshold, leaving the sun's hesitant light behind. The air turns thick, weighted with the scent of old stone and something deeper, a musty trace of forgotten time that curls beneath the resin and myrrh. Your footsteps tremble softly against the uneven floor, the rough stone pressing sharp and unyielding beneath your worn sandals. Fingers trail along the carved columns, grooves worn smooth from hands long since vanished. The temple breathes quietly here, folded upon itself, distant echoes fading into a slow, endless hum. Your eyes strain to grasp the uncertain shapes, fluted pillars, lining your narrow path, their shadows leaning close like silent watchers. Ahead, the chosen animal lies motionless in the stone basin. Pale light seeps through a slit above, a fragile beam that dances nervously along the tender curves of its preserved form. Dust motes drift in the thin stream of light, their gentle spirals hypnotic against the hush that envelops you. The sharp bite of natron dust clings stubbornly to your fingers, rough and dry, a persistent reminder of your sacred task. You lean close, breath shallow, heart guiding your touch. The powder slips slowly through your fingers as you brush the animal's surface. The oil you apply thick and heavy, gleaming faintly under the muted light. The scent of burnt cedar rises, curling in lace tendrils that momentarily soften the cool austerity of the chamber. Time seems to fold, compressing centuries into lingering moments as your hands move with unwavering focus. Yet the silence tightens, a weight pressing relentlessly. The usual distant murmur of water has vanished completely. Even the wings of bats no longer stir the shadows overhead. A faint rustle shivers in the far corners, subtle but distinct, like a breath caught and held too long. Your gaze darts sharply, tracing the shadowy hollows near the darkened pillars. Stillness remains, sharp and accusing, as though unseen eyes hover just beyond vision. Beads of sweat gather quietly along your brow, cold, despite the rising heat outside. The clammy grains of natron scratch at your skin, stubborn as the ritual itself. Your fingers pause, the oil dark and viscous, and you close your eyes for a heartbeat, drawing breath heavy with myrrh and dry earth. When you open them again, the chamber has settled into thick quiet, yet beneath it lurks a subtle tension, something unseen but palpable. Your hand returns to the basin, dipping slowly into the water that sits like glass, still, cold, barely rippling. Droplets cling to your palm, clinking faintly as you raise them, smoothing a slow path along the fragile flesh. Each motion deliberate, almost painfully slow, the rhythm stretching, an unchanging beat in the temple's pulse. The carved hieroglyphs around you hold their mute testimony, stories frozen in stone and shadow. Your fingertips ghost over the cool indentations, fingers tracing the slow march of ancient voices, whispering without sound. A flicker at the edge of your vision pulls your gaze to a dark corner where shadow pools heavy, sigh against the cold stone. Your hand tightens reflexively, muscles taut as the chill creeps anew along your spine. You hold your breath, the silence pressing in, dense and suffocating, before forcing yourself to release it in a slow exhalation, grounding in the ritual's weight. The temple feels less like shelter now, and more a living thing, watching, waiting. The steady hum, hidden deep within the stone, surfaces again, a low vibration threading through the floor beneath your feet and rising slowly into the quiet air. Your breath quickens, just slightly. The natron's grit course in your palms as you sweep it across the animal's form one last time. The scent of resin thickens, pressing into the space like a heavy cloak. Your gaze drifts upward to the narrow slit of sky above, where the sun has climbed. Just a fraction farther, hesitating at the temple's roof, a single thin ray illuminates dust-swirled air, golden and fragile, a brief flame flickering before the shadows close tighter once more. In this brief grace, your shoulders loosen marginally, the ritual's steady familiarity offering small relief amid the growing unease. You rise slowly, the rough stones biting at your knees and the heat pressing hungrily outside. Every step retraces the path back to the doorway, carefully measured and resigned. The silent presence at the edge of the chamber seems to coil tighter, a slow pulse in the darkness. Your hand brushes once more against the splintered wood, lips parting quietly as if to speak, but no sound forms. The last flicker of light is swallowed as the door begins to close, sealing the chamber behind you. A whisper of cold air snakes beneath the threshold, a breath or a warning, before the darkness falls completely and something unseen stirs, patient and expectant, waiting to reveal itself in the shadowed depths just beyond the temple's heart. You pause at the threshold, the wooden door warm yet cracked beneath your fingers. The cold breath that brushed your skin lingers, fading reluctantly as the desert sun pushes further into the temple's entrance. Behind you, the dark chamber remains sealed, a hollow silence swallowing every whispered sound. The weight of ritual presses against your chest, steady yet suffocating, as you step outside and the sand beneath your sandals shifts softly, a quiet acceptance in its yielding. The courtyard breathes with light, but the sun is still hesitant, the sky a pale wash, like watercolors not yet set. Dust drifts languidly, settling gently on sun-bleached stones, matrixed with cracks that map the years. You can hear the distant wind stirring, a delicate murmur weaving through the bones of the temple, carrying with it the faint scent of dry cedar and earth baked hard. Your robes brush softly against your arms, the coarse fabric whispering familiar friction, grounding you in the moment. Your thoughts, carried as lightly as the sands, return to the animal resting still behind the door. The meticulous labor of soft oil and harsh natron feels distant now, a fragile thread that holds the day's meaning. You inhale deeply, the mingled aromas of resin and dry dust filling your lungs like an old chant, slow and steady. Your pulse slows, matching the temple's patient rhythm. Yet beneath the stillness, an uneasy coil tightens quietly within your ribs, an unspoken tension you cannot yet name. You move deliberately toward the stone basin at the courtyard's center, your footsteps softened by years of habit. The air carries a stillness peppered with the faintest hum of life, a distant bird's plaintive call, the steady flutter of hidden wings, the restless stir of branches brushed by a tentative breeze. The sun touches your skin now, warming, but never harsh, the kind of heat that breathes calm rather than sears. You close your eyes briefly, the light pressing softness into your lids, a subtle reprieve from the weight of unseen eyes. Gently, your fingertips trail across the cracked surface of a nearby basin, cool and smooth as river stone. The slight dampness of the water, clinging to its rim, reflects the faint shimmer of sunlight, a quiet shimmer like a forgotten promise. You dip your hand slowly in, feeling the clear coolness lap against your skin, counterpoint to the dry, grainy natron you carried moments before. The simple contrast reminds you of the fragile balance between extremes, life and death, warmth and chill, movement and stillness. As you turn your gaze skyward, narrow slits carved high in the temple walls catch the morning sun, casting long, slender shafts of light that stretch like pale fingers across the courtyard floor. Dust motes spiral lazily within those beams, like tiny dancers caught in an endless, slow waltz. The air feels dense with time, thickened further by countless silent prayers and whispered incantations, lingering shadowed memories pressed into stone. A soft, scraping sound interrupts the stillness, delicate as the rustle of silk, and you freeze. Your eyes dart toward its source, just beyond the edge of the nearest column, where shadows pool in deep shades of ochre and gold. For a moment, nothing stirs but the sun-warmed air. Your breath slips out slowly, the faint tension unwinding, but with a nagging edge that does not dissipate. The temple exhales around you, an ancient, patient pulse rising and falling through stone and breeze. You feel it in the arch beneath your hands, where the carved reliefs speak in silent tongues. The slender pillars, rising like sentinels, guarding secrets worn thin by time. Each careful step you take burrows deeper into that stillness, drawing you inward, weaving a cocoon of ritual awareness. Your eyes catch the slow flutter of a bird's wing, a sun-bleached swallow weaving arcs near the temple's edge, dipping and rising in a dance both fragile and certain. The bird's flight feels like a quiet promise, a streak of hope in the weighty hush. The breeze stirs faint tendrils of incense, myrrh blending seamlessly with dried cedar, wrapping the space in a scent both ancient and fleeting. You lower yourself to the warm stone bench along the outer wall, fingers brushing grooves carved long ago, fingers tracing slow arcs along weathered lines. The rough texture kisses your skin, a tactile reminder that the temple holds deeper rhythms than the day's labors or the turning sun. The faintest hum vibrates beneath your hands, a slow murmur, felt more than heard. Time unwinds here, not forward, not backward, but in gentle circles, like the spiral of smoke from a dying ember. You close your eyes as the sun climbs higher, bathing your face in a muted glow, the light soft and steady, like a long sigh. Your shoulders ease, tension melting slowly, but beneath that ease lies a thread of curiosity, thin as a spider's silk. The silence carries weight now, heavy with unspoken things gathering in the air like dust shadows. There, standing near the far gate, where the courtyard walls lean close, something moves, just a flicker, a subtle ripple in the heat. Your gaze sharpens, heart tuning into a measured beat. The unseen presence feels less curious and more watchful, as if the temple itself guards a threshold not yet crossed. You rise slowly, feet folding into steps you know without thought, the rough ground pressing steady beneath your sandals. Each movement carries a breath of ritual purpose, measured and deliberate, yet a trace of unease threads through your awareness. The air thickens, a silent promise waiting to unfold. As you near the ancient doorway, the carved lintel casting long shadows across the stone, the light dims suddenly, a gathering dusk creeping into the day's brightness. Your hand inches toward the weathered wood once more, the rough grain alive beneath your fingertips. The cool breath returns, curling around your palm and whispering like a forgotten voice through the heat. And just as your fingers brush the surface, a subtle shift moves in the darkness beyond, too faint to name, yet too deliberate to ignore. The temple waits. The secret stirs. You hold your breath. The slow awakening has only just begun. The temple air feels thicker now, as though the very shadows have settled deeper around you, pulling down the walls and pressing a quiet weight against your chest. Each breath draws in the mingled scent of burnt cedar and ancient stone, grounding you as your fingers brush lightly over the worn carvings beside the doorway. The wood beneath your palm is rough, splintered by time, yet alive with a faint pulse, as if whispered secrets are folded into its grain. Slowly you step forward, the cold air of the chamber folding over you like a cloak, as the door gives way with a muted creak, swallowed immediately by the pervasive silence. The measured shuffle of your sandals against the uneven stone echoes faintly, stretching into a long, reverberating note that seems to dissolve before it reaches the far columns. Your hands trail along the cool surfaces, carved with hieroglyphs, whose faded lines trace stories you cannot speak, but whose weight you feel pressing down across the centuries. Beneath the low slit of gray, morning light filtering through the narrow ceiling opening, dust motes drift like slow dancers caught in a gentle, endless waltz. The animal's body rests in solemn stillness within a basin carved deeply from porous stone, pale and untouched by the slow decay beyond this sacred space. Your palm releases the coarse natron, allowing the powder to settle in soft clouds before your fingers dip again into the small pool of water, its surface glass smooth but cold, as if reflecting the chill swimming in the air itself. You raise droplets slowly, letting each bead cling and slide across the animal's surface, the heavy oil sliding in steady, unbroken lines. The earthy sweetness of myrrh lingers faintly, a fragile thread weaving through the chill and dust. Your movements are small but deliberate, each gesture a ritual step measured in the space between the pulse of your heartbeat and the quiet breaths you draw. A sudden flicker at the periphery catches your eye, a pause in the swirling dust, a shadow that does not belong, morphing against the deeper darkness beyond the basin's rim. You still your breath, muscles coiling like the tug of an unseen thread beneath skin, stretched tight against the unfolding hush. The ancient stones seem to lean closer, silent yet watchful, pressing stories and warnings into your senses. Your fingers brush the jagged edge of a carved pillar, grounding you with its familiar roughness. The natron's sting clings persistently, a dry abrasion that you welcome, tethering you to the task amid the rising tide of stillness. Your heartbeat pounds a slow rhythm beneath ribs taut with careful restraint. Outside, faint noises, the occasional stirring of desert wind, the distant call of a bird, hang fractured, barely threading the quiet within these solemn walls. You dip once more into the basin, the water smooth and dark, like liquid night. The droplets that cling to your skin seem to shimmer painfully slow, catching fragile light as you spread the thick oil, layer upon layer, onto the animal's pale form. The scent swells, layered with cedar and resin, curling like smoke around your fingers and climbing softly upward, lost among shadows. Each motion deepens the stillness, binding you tighter to the ritual's slow heartbeat. There is a tightness behind your eyes, a low hum threading through the stagnant air, barely audible but keenly felt. The temple itself breathes, measured and immense, its ancient pulse threading through stone and dust, urging awareness and caution. The quiet flutters again, lighter than a breath, as the softest wing beat caresses the air beyond the pillar, different from before, heavier, deliberate. You turn sharply, gaze slicing through the darkness, swathing the far recesses. Nothing moves, only dense black folds of shadow, thick as woven cloth, swallowing the hollow spaces. Your fingers clench briefly, the coarse natron gritty beneath your nails, as your breath tightens and releases slowly, filling the chamber with the steady, cautious rhythm of endurance. A faint warmth stirs at your skin's surface, a ghost of a feeling, soft as a sigh carried on a breeze long past, and you swallow, letting the sensation ripple through your steadying frame. The oils you applied catch a fleeting shimmer under the touch of light, gleaming faint gold against the fading ochres. Dust motes swirl briefly into eddies around your knees, tracing invisible arcs, as if stirred by unseen hands. You draw back slowly, the rough stones biting softly into your knees. The temple's cold wrapping around you like a patient friend, through the long ritual's unyielding cadence. Your eyes drift upward, catching the narrow slit of sky, still reluctant to brighten. A single delicate beam threads through the gloom, illuminating the sharp carvings overhead, casting long, wavering shadows across the cooled stone floor. As you rise, every movement is weighted with quiet resolve. Your footsteps trace the same slow path back toward the threshold, measured and tethered by years of relentless practice. The heavy silence swells again, thickening the air until it seems the very temple breathes with waiting. Your hand reaches once more for the splintered edge of the doorframe, the grain rough and real beneath your tired fingertips. A subtle shift, unseen but deeply sensed, ripples through the layered darkness. The chill steals along your palm anew, colder this time, sliding in like a whispered warning beneath the heat. Breath held tight, your gaze snaps to the dark beyond, where faint shapes stir with the slow certainty of shadows waking. And just before the door begins its quiet closing, sealing the shadowed chamber away, a faint rustle, soft and deliberate, slips through the stillness like a secret waiting for the next fragile breath to be drawn. The door closes with a whisper, the rough wood sliding shut against the frame, like a slow sigh released after long holding. Your palm lingers a moment longer, feeling the cool residue settle beneath your fingers, a silence deeper now, pressing back against your chest. The courtyard's hesitant light dances along the cracked stones, softening the edges of the day's relentless heat, but the cool weight of the temple remains inside you, anchored like some hidden stone within your ribs. You inhale deeply, the mingled scents of burnt cedar and dry earth, drawing into your lungs a breath steady but heavy. Around you, dust drifts lazily in slender shafts of sunlight, seeping through cracks high above, each mote tracing slow, deliberate arcs, as if time itself moves with measured patience here. The sound of wind stirs faintly, a teasing murmur against the rough pillars, carrying with it a whisper of dry leaves and distant sands. Your robes brush softly against your arms, a steady friction grounding the restless flutter inside. Your feet fall lightly on the scorched stones, worn smooth by years of countless footsteps, each step measured, careful, not hurried. The desert's heat embraces you as a familiar, steady presence, warm but unyielding, pressing in a slow, repetitive rhythm that matches the cadence of your work. You feel the weight of an unseen gaze prickling along your skin, though no eyes meet yours. The temple itself seems to lean inward, silent and knowingly watchful. Your fingers find the rough curve of a low stone bench, worn by those who came before, tracing lines faded soft by time. The texture offers a tether, a steady anchor in the tide of quiet tension, pressing gently beneath the surface. You pause, closing your eyes to the heat and dust, drawing in the lingering fragrance of myrrh, a warm, resinous pulse threading through the dry air like a fragile promise. The slow heartbeat of the temple pulses faintly alongside your own. In that stillness, your gaze lifts to narrow slits high in the walls, where pale sunlight stretches thin fingers downward, striking dust motes caught in the light's fragile embrace. They twist and twirl, slow and hypnotic, tiny dancers weaving silent stories between shadow and warmth. The light flickers briefly as a breeze ripples past, stirring the heavy folds of incense lingering from earlier offerings. The air tightens with the quiet patience of endless ritual, time folding in concentric circles around your every breath. A subtle sound glitches the calm, the faintest scrape against stone, delicate as a whispered secret slipping from many centuries past. Your breath draws tight, muscles tensing beneath the weathered cloth. Your eyes dart, searching deep shadows nestled behind fluted pillars carved with stories long forgotten. Stillness answers, heavy and dense. No flicker of movement, only the echo of your heartbeat filling the hollow spaces beneath the sacred arches. You swallow the dry tension, the bitter sting of natron dust still gnawing between your calloused fingers. The repeated sensorial weight, the slow, grinding rhythm of your task intertwines with dread that coils low, unseen but insistent. You touch your forehead, brushing away faint beads of sweat, cool against the warm desert air. The temple breathes in sync with you, or perhaps you with it, bound by the slow, relentless pattern that governs the space. Your steps carry you toward the fountain at the courtyard's center, where water glistens clear and still within a shallow stone basin. The surface mirrors the muted sky, unmoving except for the trembling glow of sunlight caught on its edges. You dip your hands slowly into the cool liquid, drawing droplets that cling like fragile gems, their gleam softened by the quiet. Each bead you raise slides reluctantly along your fingers before you let it fall, a patient and steady ritual that echoes the measured passage of time. Your gaze drifts across the courtyard, where shadows intertwine with light, blurred lines between stone and sand, like memories blending into the present. The air hums faintly, a vibration beneath your feet, barely perceptible, but present, threading invisible tension through the ancient stones. You trace slow arcs with a fingertip along the basin's rough edge, the texture grounding you in this moment, even as the unease tightens like a soft chain around your senses. A faint movement catches the corner of your vision, a brief flicker at the doorway, where shadow deepens. Your breath falters, heart nudging tight inside ribs that ache with ritual repetition. You turn sharply, eyes scanning the full breadth of the temple's boundary, but no shape answers your questioning gaze. Only empty air, woven thick with waiting, as if the temple's walls themselves hold a secret poised on the edge of revelation. You feel a restless pulse beneath your skin, a fragile thread of fear mingled with a flicker of hope, a breath that quickens and slows, drawing you unwillingly toward whatever waits unseen. The courtyard's heat presses gently on your back, steadfast and incessant, like the sun's slow march across the sky. But within the temple's shadowed heart, time moves differently, stretching, folding, thinning. Your fingers brush again along the wooden door's worn frame, textured and warm beneath the sun's careful touch. A chill snakes unexpectedly through your skin, slow and deliberate, threading through the heat like an icy whisper. The air tightens around you, thick and expectant, as if the temple itself leans in closer to watch your next move. Every sound is muffled but full, the soft scrape of cloth, a breath held too long, the faint rustle of dust stirred by a secret breeze. You step forward, the rough stone firm beneath your sandals, carrying you closer toward the doorway where shadow pools deeper, waiting. The scent of incense thickens, curling around your senses in a slow, deliberate spiral. Your hand reaches out tentatively, fingers brushing the grain once more, the chill humming along your skin like an ancient warning. In the muted glow, a movement stirs inside the darkness, a slow, deliberate shifting of shadow that feels both distant and intimately close. You pause, breath caught sharp and still, heart suspended in the fragile hush. And in this pregnant moment, the temple exhales slowly. The silence deepens, waiting for you to cross the threshold and uncover what lies just beyond the light. The door lingers closed a moment longer than expected beneath your palm. The wood warm, yet fractured from years of relentless sun. The weight of silence presses deep, anchoring your breath slower, tethering your senses to the hollow stillness beyond. Outside, the desert's heat softens as the reluctant morning climbs higher. Yet here, shadows hold sway, deep and patient, folding around your form like a heavy, familiar cloak. Stepping back into the courtyard, your sandals whisper softly over cracked stone, the texture uneven beneath worn soles. The dry air carries the mingled scent of burnt cedar and dust, a memory that seeps into your skin like an old chant. Your robes brush quietly along your arms, the coarse fabric grounding dull aches and distant whispers of fear curling beneath the surface. The sun, hesitant but forgiving, reaches just enough to warm the dust motes dancing in columns of light. You let your fingers trace the stone basin's edge, cool and rough, worn smooth by countless rituals. The basin holds still water, the mirror of a muted sky, fractured only by gentle ripples from your fingertips. The clear chill contrasts with your palm's lingering grit of natron, a stubborn, abrasive reminder that sacred duty exists between extremes, life and death, harshness and softness, movement and frozen time. Your gaze drifts upward, catching the delicate shafts dropping through narrow slits carved high in the temple walls. Dust spirals slowly within these beams, a silent ballet of particles weaving between shadow and warmth. The faint swell of myrrh twines through the air, soft tendrils of resin and earth blending into the atmosphere like a whispered promise, fragile yet enduring. A subtle sound interrupts, a delicate scrape that hangs just beyond hearing, like silk slipping over stone. Your breath tenses, still and sharp. Eyes flick to the dark folds curling beneath the nearest pillar. For a heartbeat, nothing moves, but the pulse of waiting thickens. The temple holds its breath again, pressing an almost tangible quiet that stretches toward you. The natron, coarse beneath your fingers, scratches against worn skin, grounding you. The repeated rhythm of ritual, centuries old, pulls tight like a slow thread winding through your limbs and bones. Sweat beads crisp and cool on your forehead, trickling down in quiet rivulets, the sole relief from the desert sun's soft insistence. You draw air through tight lips and exhale with measured calm, anchoring yourself to each step of the work still unfolding within you. Your hands return to the basin, dipping into water that feels as cold as frozen light. Sluggish droplets cling and slide translucent down your skin, mapping slow journeys as the thick, dark oil follows, a viscous ribbon glistening faint gold beneath the tempered light. Myrrh and cedar scents deepen, curling upward into the vaulted shadows, softening the temple's harsh outlines as the coolness resists the unyielding warmth. The oppressive silence might have swallowed all sound, but a faint hum vibrates beneath your feet, a vibration so low it seems rooted in the stone itself. You catch your breath again as the faint rustle of a wing brushes distant air, heavier and slower than before. Your gaze snaps toward the dim recesses where pillars rise like ancient sentinels, their worn surfaces swallowing both light and movement. Shadows coil, folded tightly, yet empty to the eye. Cold curls anew along your spine, an almost imperceptible shiver that matches the rhythm of your heartbeat. Your fingers clench, rough with natron, pressing quiet patience into every motion as your eyes find the carved hieroglyphs that line the walls. Worn and faded, their determined outlines hold stories of sacrifice and faith, a slow assurance interwoven through the temple's pulse. You draw your hands back gently to the animal's body, resting still in the stone basin. The pale flesh gleams faint under the fragile beam of light filtering through the slitted ceiling, and each slow stroke of oil smooths away the creeping dryness. The scent of burnt resin thickens like a cloak, swallowing the cold and dust, grounding you. The temple's breath seems to slow, to fold into itself with weighty deliberateness. Time here feels less linear, pressing into your skin like a second pulse beneath the first. Dust motes dance faintly, spiraling low around your feet, stirred by an unseen breath that threads through carved stone. Your knees press sharply against rough sandstone as you begin to rise. The clearing sun casts elongated shadows that stretch across the floor, creating a lattice of light and dark beneath your feet. A tightness lingers in your chest, a coil of earthen tension mingling with the fading calm. Stepping forward, each footfall measures itself against the steady rhythm of your breathing and the unchanging hush around you. The rough wood of the doorframe meets your fingertips again, warm, splintered, alive with the texture of countless hands that came before. A subtle chill snakes through your skin, slow and deliberate, threading shadows beneath the relentless heat. Beyond, darkness waits, dense and patient, a veil that shifts with a life of its own. Your pulse steadies, but your breath catches as movement brushes the edge of vision. A flicker, a subtle shift of shadow, too precise to be accidental. You hold the moment, still, suspended, caught in the fragile thread of breath and silence. And then, almost imperceptibly, the darkness leans forward, waiting for your next step. The door rests quietly shut now, the rough wood cool against your skin as the lingering silence folds tightly around you. The courtyard beyond breathes under a softening sky, where the sun dips low with patient grace, painting the stones in hues of fading gold and gentle amber. The temple no longer feels like a cage, but a cradle, a guardian holding its secrets close, yet finally willing to release their weight. You draw a slow, steadying breath, letting the mingled scent of cedar and myrrh settle deep into your lungs. Each inhalation pulls the desert air, rich with dust and distant whispers, into your body, a silent hymn to cycles completed and duties honored. Your fingers graze the worn edge of the stone basin once more, cool and familiar beneath your touch, grounding you in a moment suspended between past and present. The animal you preserved lies still beneath the temple's fading light, its form forever captured, yet gifted a strange, eternal quietude. The natron dust and thick resin now settle into their final layers, seals against time's slow encroachment. It is as if you have not merely prepared a body, but woven a bridge between worlds, between mortality and memory, between the sacred and the unseen. A delicate balance held, fragile yet enduring. As you rise from your kneeling place, the rough stones yield softly to your tired knees, welcoming your movement with their unyielding solidity. You feel the heat tempering into cool dusk, a gentle retreat that eases the day's relentless press. The temple's shadows deepen gracefully, no longer oppressive but softened, stretched long like an old friend's embrace. Turning slowly, your gaze sweeps over the carved hieroglyphs that crown the temple walls. Their silent stories, etched through eras, stand testament not just to death, but to legacy, to reverence, threaded through countless hands before you. Your fingers linger over a rough scar, a faded symbol, and for a brief moment, time feels like a quiet river, folding endlessly in on itself. The steady hum beneath the stone seems to quiet finally, a breath drawn long and slow, as if the temple itself exhales deeply, releasing centuries of tension with grace. The bats flutter softly overhead once more, their delicate wings stirring the air into whispered life. The gentle murmur of water returns, a quiet pulse grounding the sacred space. You feel the weight you carried ease visibly, the tight coil within your chest unraveling into calm. The unseen gaze that pressed so heavily at the edges of your vision now feels more like a watchful presence, benign and protective. Something that has waited patiently for this moment, the rite's completion, the ritual's fulfillment, now folds back into the stillness, as dormant as the desert night, preparing to embrace the world outside. With careful steps, you retrace your path through the temple threshold, the air lighter, caressed now by the faint desert breeze cooling the heated stones beneath your feet. Outside, the horizon blooms softly in fading light, the sun's last warmth resting gently on the trembling sand. The world beyond seems paused, as if holding its breath in solemn recognition. You pause, hand resting on the doorframe, that familiar roughness, both ancient and intimate. Fingers tingle with the fading bite of natron, a tactile echo of the day's sacred labor. Your gaze lifts to the widening sky, now painted in strokes of rose and violet, the temple casting long, serene shadows that stretch steadily into night. The courtyard hums with quiet life, the distant call of a bird settling for sleep, the soft rustle of leaves carried by a whispering wind, and the steady trickle of water returning to its endless journey. All threads weaving a gentle lullaby, wrapping the space in tender comfort. Closing your eyes, you feel the softness of your robes against the cool evening air, the lingering scent of resin, a warm cloak around your shoulders. The exhaustion pressing into your limbs is not just weariness, but the satisfying weight of a purpose fulfilled, a story traced to its final line. The temple's ancient heart beats steady and slow beneath you, a timeless rhythm syncing with your own. Here, between the stones and shadows, the past folds gently into the present, leaving behind a quiet promise that every act of care, every repeated motion steeped in faith and sweat, becomes a thread in the vast tapestry of memory. Step by step, you move away from the ritual's center, the night embracing the sacred space with velvety calm. Each breath carries the cool desert night, drawing shadows tighter, softening edges. The lingering unease that once clung like dust is gone, dissolved in the patient passage of time and the steady hands that guided the sacred rite. As your figure fades into the dimming light, the temple stands resolute, a sentinel guarding the quiet mysteries nestled within its walls. The sacred animal remains cradled in stone, preserved beyond its fleeting life, but forever part of the endless cycle. And you, gently released from your vigil, carry with you the rhythmic pulse of an ancient trust fulfilled, a quiet satisfaction blooming beneath the desert stars. The stillness deepens softly around you.